If your principals like you and support you, you will do fine. If they have anything, reservations or anything about who you are, what you're trying to do, it can be a struggle. The first year of the TIM scores, they launched them that year. We were told that no one would lose their jobs over those scores, and we were told time and time again. I didn't feel secure that that would happen, but I had no idea. I had no idea.
She was a very well-respected teacher in this school system. But there was an issue that developed between she and her principal the year he got there. And he wanted to give her the remedial classes and to break her spirits. And he refused to give her any help, any assistance, any measures as far as discipline. And because of that, he moved to terminate Mrs. Harrison the year before he moved to fire her. Well, he moved to excess her. And of course, at that time, we were under a contract and you could not excess that way. You could not, today they called it excessing. We called it surplusing back then. And that could not happen, and she got her job back that year. And from that time, he set out with a vengeance to get Mrs. Harrison, and he ultimately non-reelected her the following year. And that's where the fight started.
And I was in and out of rooms. I went through 2 days of a tenure hearing. I went to the board hearing that was held against me. Then I had to go through a remand hearing. It turned out to be a good fight, and we lost every step of the way. I knew that my funds were limited after I got non-reelected. I went through the telephone book and the internet looking for attorneys who handled employment issues. To my surprise, that was not easy because I kind of felt that they had alliances, they had friends, the board does a lot of contract work, and I just kind of felt like many of them turned me down because they didn't want to harm their careers. My next option was to contact TEA. I applied for the help and I was accepted. When I lost at the board, that was when TEA contacted me and said, look, we don't think we can win in Chancery. My attorney almost said, and we think you did something wrong. So they dropped me.
When Mrs. Harrison's case came before the school system, she was then represented by Jenny McCoy of TEA. And that very night, the school system voted not to uphold the recommendation to non-reelect Mrs. Harrison. We thought it was over, she had won. They said, well, we're gonna come back and require the district to bring evidence that they did give her targeted PD. They came back with no evidence, had another hearing, and subsequently the board voted to dismiss her. And it was all based on faulty logic and no proof. And they did not do due diligence. They did not give her a proper audience. And they certainly did not vet well the board's recommendation. After that, Mrs. Harrison said, I have no other choice but to take it to court. Well, it was at that time that TEA would have to make the decision whether or not they would recommend, because they were our parent organization who provided legal services. They chose not to take Mrs. Harrison's case to court, even though they thought it was a very strong case. The current teacher evaluation system provides that teachers do things that are beyond the scope and the ability of an educator to do. For example, it even requires that a child who has been medically diagnosed with learning disabilities, that child achieves. Now, we're going against what God and nature has opined for a child. A child who has the intellectual ability to only do X, you are required to do Z with them. And it does not work in many cases. You can improve, you can teach, but taking a test, everything about a teacher's evaluation now rises and falls on what the students do.
Teachers have been subjected to unfair evaluation. Good example, one teacher went to a principal and said, I didn't get my planning time yesterday. The principal tells her to get out of her office, and then 5 minutes later, she's at her door evaluating her. So we have a very subjective evaluation system that principals are allowed to get away with. And those kind of practices have been going on for years. And when teachers don't see any action taken, or they see these type of behaviors continuing, they lose that sense of hope.
It is based a lot on how a principal receives you. And it can be, I think it can be very dangerous. TEA is located outside of Memphis. So when you talk to Virginia McCoy, who was my attorney, it was always by phone. When she came here to talk to me, I always had to make an appointment. She was here for a day, and then she was back to her home office. With Darrell J. O'Neill, it was a lot different. He was out there on Winchester. I would say the visibility really made a difference, that he was there. I could touch him. If I lost this case, teachers across Tennessee could lose their jobs after one low evaluation. That's a hard pill to swallow after you've worked for 25, 26 years, never had a problem before, and then you run across a problem. So I knew that I could very well become the poster child.
That my case versus Shelby County Schools, no teacher in Tennessee will be terminated for one low evaluation.
If you're being mistreated in your building, bring it to the association. Let us address it. That's what we're here for. That's why you pay dues. Our job is to advocate for you, speak for you, and address those issues that hinder you from being effective in your classroom or in your profession.
And you do not shed your First Amendment rights when you go into a school. You have the right to speak. You have the right to complain. You have the right to ask questions. You do have freedom of speech. You have freedom of choice, association, all of those things. Some principals tell teachers who they can talk to, who you shouldn't talk to. So all of those things are forms of control. So when I see that, and I tell teachers, do your job. And that's all you need to do. If I'm doing my job, I don't have to carry your trash.